Hey everyone, we're really excited to have you at Altitude this year. We hope you have been enjoying yourself over the past couple of days. Today we're going to be hosting a workshop called Mastering Increased Control Over File Security with Content Scanning. Some quick introductions. I'm Chris.
And I'm Sean.
And we're both implementation specialists here at BetterCloud on our expert advisory group. Generally, we work with customers who are onboarding into the platform, and we ensure that they are configured properly and share the best practices to make sure that everyone gets the most use out of BetterCloud. Today on the agenda, we'll be covering what is content scanning, the methods to scan content in BetterCloud, and then show you a demo of how to configure BetterCloud to scan for content. So first off, BetterCloud syncs in file metadata, allowing you to view and secure your files across various providers. And those providers are Slack, Dropbox, Drive, Box, and Microsoft OneDrive and SharePoint Online files. On the right side, you can see our files grid. We'll pull in metadata such as the name, the permissions, who shared on the file, and then you can use those attributes to monitor and create policies around them based on company compliance rules. So you could create policies over inappropriate file sharing, or if people are sharing files with specific content within that file. So content scanning allows you to examine the contents of a file for sensitive data. So what we do is we extract the text and then send that to Google's DLP API, and then Google will let us know if it is a match or not. So the file types that we'll scan are CSVs, Microsoft files, TXTs, Google Docs, or PDFs that have already been through OCR. And the info types that we'll scan for is we have 90 plus out-of-the-box data identifiers such as credit cards and social security numbers. Additionally, you can use custom regular expressions. So if you have a company-specific pattern that you're looking to scan for, you can go in and create that regular expression, input that into BetterCloud, and we'll start scanning for that specific content that matches the pattern. And lastly is keyword searching. So you can enter in specific keywords to search for within files. And a use case there is if you have an internal project name and you want to make sure the data within those files aren't being shared out inappropriately, you'll just enter in that keyword or that internal project name, and then we'll start scanning for those and reporting on that as well. So why is content scanning important? Users have full control over what they can put in their files. This can range from their own personal data to company-specific data. Then those files can be shared out to external users, the entire domain, or the public. And then you have little to no visibility within the native admin consoles. So you're flying blind and then entrusting your users with your company data. And users just use files as an easy way to store data. People are doing a million things at once, and then in just a matter of seconds and in a few clicks, they can accidentally make something external or public with that sensitive data without knowing what the repercussions are. So you need to stay ahead of the game and get a tool that will monitor and proactively notify you of inappropriate sharing. Here's just one example of a file containing some billing information and credit cards. So you're going to want to continuously monitor for this type of sharing and make sure that you get alerted and also take any remediating actions necessary to bring that back into compliance.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the methods we're going to use to scan content. You start with a file audit. You're going to use this as a baseline to find sensitive material in your environment. You're going to use it to identify those vulnerabilities to secure with some ongoing policies. So this is what you'll do initially. You'll do this most likely when you first join BetterCloud. It gives you a good baseline to find those content violations and potential threats. It gives you an idea of what people are sharing and to whom, so that you can take that information and use it in an ongoing manner later. And you do another baseline scan if you had some new area of concern, a regulatory compliance, possibly if you had a merger and acquisition and you have a whole new data set that comes in and you want to get a baseline scan on that as well. You'd use it then. Your benefit is to be able to find what you have right now in your current data set, who's sharing what to whom, what kind of content is in it, identify those areas of concern, that you can then use so that you can create ongoing policies later. The second method is to target some content scans. This would be when you know exactly what files you're looking for, that you want to perform a scan on. You do have a limited number of files you can scan, up to 500. One of the use cases would be if you're filtering on the files grid and you're targeting a subset of files to scan. For example, Every tax season, you have the finance department possibly share some tax files with your attorneys. But you have a policy that says they have to obscure or mask out the SSNs or remove them completely. So you want to target those. So perhaps you'd look for of names of files called tax or tax returns, and you'd look at those and make sure that they did in fact comply with the policy of not having SSNs in those. Your benefit obviously is you can find that content immediately and you can target those files and immediately mitigate that sharing violation. Now all this leads up to your go forward policies. You've used this information to find out what it is you need to be concerned with and then setting some alerts to try to mitigate that on an ongoing basis. You're going to set up that continuous monitoring on all those files or subsets of files so that you don't have to continually do scans manually or on a schedule. We'll just scan those as they come up, as they're created and edited, etc. Your use cases would be when you're doing those scans, you don't want to have to manually do something, so you could set up some automatic actions to perhaps unshare those files or alert somebody when when that content is found. And your benefits obviously is you can secure that in real time. You don't have to constantly watch it. You don't have to run regular scans on it. It'll just happen against those alerts. You can also then protect yourself against users that are trying to exfiltrate some sensitive data as well 24/7 when you have these alerts in place. So what we'll do now is we'll start our demo and kind of show you how to do that in the product. So here we are in the BetterCloud application. Let's say you started the dashboard. You're going to come down to Files, and you're going to come into Scans. In your scans, you won't have any completed scans yet if you haven't done this. So we'll start on the top right with the blue button to start a new scan. So you've got a choice to do a scan and you've got multiple parameters you can choose. So what we recommend is that you do multiple scans. You may end up with 10 or 12 scans, and that's okay. There's no performance hit with running multiple scans. And the reason we want you to run multiple scans is it's easier to parse the results. If you scan for everything from public, external, internal, across all your integrations, you'd end up with results that were very difficult to discern what exactly was the violation. So it's far easier to do multiple scans that is targeted to something specific that you're looking for. If you're looking for 10 different things, you may end up with 10 different scans, and that's okay. So for this example, I'm going to remove external and just say we're looking for public. And I'm not going to look across all of my file providers because, again, I want to make it a little more granular. I'm just going to pick one of them. For this example, let's try Google. I'm not going to narrow it down to file owner or shared with. That's a little too granular, although you could if you needed to. On the top right, we will show you how many files you've selected for your choices. So once you've narrowed that down, you can hit your data selection. What are you looking for? What is the content that concerns you? So you've got predefined data and you have custom data. We'll start with predefined. You've also got categories, United States or other countries if you're concerned with things in the UK, for example. But we'll start in this example with United States and use that. So you've got your general PII. In this case, let's just pick the typical Social Security number. We're only going to pick one. Now I could pick again, I could pick Social Security number, I could pick credit card, I could pick all kinds of things, but again, your results are going to be difficult to parse and figure out what exactly the violations were, so we're going to make this narrow. In addition to your general PII, you've got other categories that you can look for. So you've got security, you can look for GCP credentials, Bitcoin, private keys, if that's a concern of your industry. You've got financial, you've got the usual credit cards, bank routing numbers, things like that. And you've got your other. Your other is just the category of industry-specific things. If you're in the healthcare industry, you're going to be looking for HIPAA violations. If you're in the education industry, you might be looking for self-harm conversations and documents. You might be looking for profanity. If you're in the pharmaceutical, you might be looking for drugs. You can do that in the other category. So again, as Chris said, we've got 90 predefined categories. And if those don't cover your needs, you can come to custom data. You've got keywords. If there's certain words you're looking for, maybe you're looking for documents that inside the document they say internal only, confidential, maybe the name of your largest customer. You can look for those keywords. Additionally, you can do regular expressions. So you can build those out. So AWS key is not one in a predefined, but maybe that's a concern of yours. You just go in, you build that regular expression out, name it, save it. It'll come over and that'll be one of the things you're going to be looking for. So you've got those regex and the keywords in addition to the predefined. In this case, we're going to stick with the predefined and we're going to just look for SSN, which is a common use case. You'll get to the summary. We'll tell you what you've done here in the summary, but the other critical piece I would say would be naming it. You want to name it in a way that's very specific. You clearly targeted a very specific thing, so let's name it in a very specific way so your results look a little easier to read. So this one was Google SSN public share. So now we know exactly what it is, and you might put a date on it, which will help you know what date this was run, and you're going to begin your scan. Your scan's in progress. You can view progress by coming over to your In Progress tab, where you'll notice the name you gave it, and the scan is in the queue. It takes a few minutes for it to get out of the queue and begin to scan the documents and bring them in. But you've got a refresh button here. You don't need to refresh your entire browser or leave and come back. Just hit the refresh, and you'll see it jumps. And you notice the date it started. And then you've got, we're scanning 2 of 58 files. In this case, we had 58. And the status will count up as we go through the file. So if you had 5,800, you'd see that slowly count up. May take some time, but you can see that progress here using the refresh. When it's completed, it then appears here. So we'll find that one we ran. I did that before, so we've got one here, Google SSN public share. So you look into it, and you'll notice you've got one violation on each one of these things, and this is why it's easier. You now know exactly what this violation is. It's always going to be SSN. So if you're going to do mitigation on something for SSN, you know this is all of my SSN violations. You've got scanned criteria at the top. You see the category and the data type we looked for. If you need a refresher, if somehow you didn't name it well enough, you'll know what you've done. You have these violations. You can click into them, and you can see it confirms it's an SSN. We mask the result. And we also have a view file here. So when it comes to view file, this is not anything special. We're not adding any permissions. We have the same permissions that were left on whatever the file you're looking for. So in this case, it's a publicly shared file. So when you hit view file, you can see it because it is a publicly shared file. But if you were doing a scan on internally shared or private files or external, and you, the admin who's running this, do not have permissions on that file, you're not going to get permissions. We don't add it. You'll see the usual provider's error message about you don't have permissions. Click here to get it. And you'll have to get those permissions in another manner. So once you've reviewed, and yes, these are violations, the financial people maybe didn't get rid of those SSNs. Maybe they didn't do that back in 2015, and so you need to mitigate this. So you can highlight them and take action on them right now. You come up to your action, your select action. These are Google files, so we'll come over to Google, and we'll decide we're going to set the file sharing permissions. Right now it's public on the web. We're going to bring it all the way back. Maybe you want to bring it back to your domain only, or bring it all the way back to specific people. You notice you've got 58 files selected. Maybe you want to bring that back to view, whatever you need to do. When you take action, we will take action against those files. Now, additionally, as I said about viewing the file, maybe you do need to review this and you do need to get into these files. Well, you've highlighted them, one of the actions you can take, because you can pick any action you want against these files that are available. You might want to add a file collaborator. So now you've got 58 files. What file collaborator do you want to add? Well, I need the admin, for example. The admin needs to be added so that the admin can go look. And we're just looking, so maybe we make it view. We don't need to notify anybody. We'll go ahead and take action. Once that action is completed, you now do have permissions on it, and you can come in and do that view file because you've given yourself permissions. Now, additionally, you can also come into actions against all of these, and you can go to workflows, and you can run a workflow. So you may have created a workflow. Now, at this point, you may not have if it's your first time, but eventually you'll create some workflows for file sharing violations because you may want to do more than one thing at a time. So if you've done that, your workflow will be available. You can click the workflow. It would run the workflow against these file violations. We'll come back to scans and I'll show you that if you did a large scan with many choices, notice what it looks like. The scan criteria has a lot of things in it. So you have a lot of file violations with a lot of violations in them, and it's very difficult to parse your way through all these and figure out what exactly is this violation. So this is why we prefer, or we would recommend, that you just do granular ones. It makes it much easier to view the results and take action against them. The only time I can imagine you would do this is if you said, I'm going to take the same exact action against a file violation, regardless of what the violation is. I don't care if it's any of these, we're going to take the same exact action. In that case, then that may be a good use case for doing all the scan violations. It's okay, you've got a lot, you're going to take the same action. But otherwise, under normal circumstances, you want to do a little more granular. So that's what you're going to do as a baseline. Is the first thing you're going to do is mitigate the existing violations by learning what they are, who's sharing what with whom, what types of things you need to concern yourself with. It might be SSNs, it might be credit cards or bank numbers, so that you can then use that in the future of what you may want to target or what you may want to set go forward policies for. So I'll hand it over to Chris, and he will then talk you through the targeted scans and the ongoing policy.
All right, thanks, Sean. So now that we've done our baseline scan, I'm going to show you how to use our targeted content scanning. So first we're going to go to Files, Browse, which brings you to our Files grid, listing all of our files in here. Now I could go in and select a bunch of files to start scanning for content, but I'm probably going to want to narrow this down a bit, especially because we can only take action on 500 files at a time. So if I hover over the name column, I can start filtering this down. So I'm going to do contains, I'm going to type the word tax in. So this is Sean's example of going over the targeted content scan of tax files that we may want to scan for social security numbers. So now that I've narrowed this down, I can see that I have Google files, I have Dropbox files, I have different exposure levels here as well. And there's 98 total files that are that have the word tax in it. So I'm going to click on the Select All button to select all 98 files. And then I'm going to click on Select Action. And within the BetterCloud integration, I can click Scan Content. And I'm brought to the familiar UI where we were able to scan for content using the file audits before. So if I type in SSN, I'll add this in here. I'm going to go Next Summary, and I'll just call this, tax file scan for SSN, and begin scan. And this is going to appear directly in the scan section, just like in the file audits, show you the progress, and you can go in and take remediating action if we were to find social security numbers within those tax files. All right, so now that we've done our full file audits, I'm going to show you how to create go forward policies. And we're going to do that in the alerts section. So if I click on alerts and manage, I'm brought to my main alerts page that shows you all the alerts that I've gone ahead and created and customized. So the alert I'm going to look for is the sensitive data scanned. And as you can see here, within all of our file integrations, we have a sensitive data scanned alert. So I'm going to start with my Dropbox files. And I'm going to call this Dropbox files containing SSN. We have the ability to condition this down further, but I'm going to leave this as the default because we want to scan for scan within all of our Dropbox files. And then again, similar content scanning area. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to type in SSN, add that with the plus sign. I do have the ability to include private files, but I only care about the files that have been shared out already. So I'm going to leave this unchecked. And then I can set all of this as the default and go ahead and click on the publish button. So right now we're going to start monitoring continuously for Dropbox files containing social security numbers. And it's only going to be showing up in the triggered alert section. You're not going to get proactively notified or even take remediating action. And that's where workflows fits in. So we're going to tie this to a workflow. And to do that, you'll go to workflows and new. I've already gone ahead and created a workflow example. So I'm just going to pop this open over here. And this is our workflows builder. So on the left side, you can see our library. And the way workflows works is you wait for an event, which is your when event. If it meets a specific condition, then take these actions. And the when event is going to be the Dropbox files containing SSN alert that we just created over here. The if condition is going to be left blank because we've already done the conditioning within the alert itself. And then these are the actions that we're going to take. So the first thing I'm going to do is create an incident in service now. And if I scroll down towards the bottom, you can see I'm putting some details in the description field over here. So I'm able to pull in metadata dynamically from the file that triggered this alert. So if I type in name and then click on these curly braces, I can pull in the name of the file. And then I can type in owner and pull in the owner email of the file. So we can properly notify the security team that's going to be receiving this incident so they can go in and do some investigation on their end. Next, I'm going to delete the shared link for the Dropbox file. So if it's shared publicly with a link, I'm going to remove that. Next, I'm going to remove all external collaborators from the file, so anyone outside of the Dropbox instance, and then send the user an email notifying them of the changes. So we're getting very restrictive here because this does contain sensitive information, and we want to automatically revoke all public and external access. So I'm sending the user an email notifying them of this change. I can do that by clicking the curly braces over here and selecting the owner email. Alerting the security team as a CC, and then addressing the person using the dynamic fields again, so saying hello, whatever the Dropbox owner's name is, and letting them know that the file contains social security numbers and sharing has been reverted, and then to please contact security with any questions. So what we're doing here is we're allowing the admin to go in and create these policies and take care of all the remediation without even needing to lift a finger. So they get the notifications and they get the remediation done. And they don't need to do anything else. Okay, now just to summarize what we went over today. Three ways to scan for content in BetterCloud. First is the file audit. You're going to scan all files that meet a certain criteria, a point-in-time scan. This is going to be the first thing that you do. The next way is to use our targeted content scans, and you're going to use the filtering on the files grid to select a specific set of files. And this is also a point-in-time scan. So if you know what you're scanning for, you can go ahead and start using our targeted content scan action. And finally are our go-forward policies. So you're going to set up an alert, and then we're going to scan a file if something changes, which is going to be continuous monitoring. So that alert will then be the event of a workflow, and you can take whatever actions you want to notify and remediate those files. Thank you for attending this session. We hope you found this helpful, and we hope that you enjoy the next few days of Altitude.